Good morning and welcome to you all for this second Q&A question within the joint defense call on dual-use technologies in space and materials. As a reminder, this defense call is structured into two phases. So the initial phase, which will end on the 29th of July, and the second phase, which will start on the 5th of September, where the selected companies and research organizations need to submit a full project proposal. These Q&A sessions, where we are currently in the second one, have the goal to explain the different criteria for the companies in the first phase. My name is Eric Lauer, and I'm part of the R&D and innovation support team here at Lux Innovation, and I'm joined with my colleague Alexander Link.
Hello, everybody.
So, as usual, please do not hesitate to put your questions in the question tab, and we will look to answer these at the end of this session. And finally, as a reminder, this session will be recorded and the replay can be watched on the platform. So I will just share a presentation. So the topic of today's session is the co-funding capacity for companies. And just as a reminder, the involved parties within the joint defense call. So this is a slide from the previous Q&A session regarding the main eligibility criteria. If you did not assist in this webinar, the replay can of course be found on the platform where we go over the different criteria and their implications. Among the main eligibility criteria is the co-funding capacity of the company, which will be the subject of today's Q&A session. So the underlying funding mechanism within this defense call for companies, namely the RDI law, is a co-funding scheme. This means if your project is, for instance, entitled to 50% of state aid, your company will need to provide the other 50%. This means that the company needs to demonstrate its capacity to fund its part of the project. This is done by demonstrating the financial soundness and viability regarding its contribution to the project. The co-funding from the company can stem from different sources, which we will see in a later slide. As already also seen in the last webinar, and as a reminder, on this slide you will find the eligible costs which make up the budget. So we have the staff costs, the investment costs, the materials, the subcontracting, and the overhead costs, all related to the project. This budget will need to be estimated within the project outline for the phase one, and it is this budget which will serve to estimate the maximum state aid and the company and how much the company needs to co-finance. On this slide, we see an example of this. So we have an estimation of a budget for a project. For instance, in this example, the eligible project budget amounts to 520,000 euros, which will then be multiplied with the accessible state aid rate, which will depend on the type of research and the technological complexity. For instance, the industrial research for lower TRLs and experimental development for higher TRLs. The size of the company, so whether the company or the undertaking applying is a small, medium, or large company, based on the SME analysis, which was also discussed in the previous webinar. Finally, also, whether the project is collaborative and fulfills the criteria for an effective collaboration. As a reminder, the table with the applicable maximum state aid rates can be found in the call text on the platform. As you know, different constellations are possible within this joint defense call. For instance, there is the possibility of an individual application, which could result in a max state aid of 700,000 euros for individual companies, or 500,000 euros of state aid for research organization. For collaborative applications, there are also different constellations, as can be seen on this slide. So for instance, 2 or more research organizations, 2 or more companies, or a company and a research organization. Then we come to, as discussed earlier, the company can rely on different funding sources in order to finance its part of the project. Among these, we find, of course, the equity slash the own funds. Basically, these are the own funds which are within the applicant company, such as accessible reserves or retained earnings. Company can also rely on a capital increase. This is notably the case for companies who have not yet accumulated sufficient own funds and might need to rely on outside financing for the R&D project in form of a capital increase. Then we also have the loans, which could be, for instance, in form of a bank loan or a shareholder loan. In the case of loan financing, it should be, however, ensured that this is done with a healthy mix of equity and loan to ensure the financial soundness of the company. Finally, this could also be done through the free cash flow, which is the cash that is generated by the company after taking into consideration the operational cash outflows, investment expenses, and the working capital expenses. So in the following few slides, we will go over the cash flow forecast and also how to document the co-financing capacity. So on this slide, we can see the simplified cash flow forecast, which can also be downloaded on the platform. While the cash flow is mandatory for startups, so companies which are younger than 3 years, we recommend that every participating SME fills out this document. For startups, additionally, we recommend to fill in a detailed cash flow forecast, which we will see in the next few slides. To just come back to this simplified cash flow forecast, it is based on quarters and documents the cash inflow and outflow for the company. This helps to demonstrate the financial situation of the company as well as the potential impact of the project and can also serve as a good exercise for the company to estimate the effect of the project on their cash situation. So as mentioned, the detailed cash flow forecast is strongly recommended for startups. The detailed cash flow forecast will allow for a more granular overview of the financial projections of the company. This, coupled with a business plan, which is also mandatory for startups, should give a good understanding of the business case and the financial projection. In any case, whether simplified or detailed cash flow, it is important that the company uses realistic assumptions and can document the underlying hypotheses, and that the cash flow forecast serves to demonstrate the financial viability of the company. Regarding the template for the business plan as well as a detailed cash flow forecast, Lux Innovation can provide these, and for this you can contact us at contact@researchindustrycollaboration.lu. So just on this slide, you see a small glimpse of the detailed cash flow forecast. I hope it is not too small. Anyway, this is just a screenshot for illustration purposes, showing some of the elements of the detailed cash flow forecast, such as a breakdown in the revenues for the different products, the different financing inflows, outflows, a detailed overview of the operational expenses, and so forth. And it is also presented on a monthly basis, which is then summarized for the years on the beginning of the document. Additionally, detailed information regarding the staff, the assumptions, capitalization, and debt is required. So to conclude on this topic, we will go over, or we will answer the question, what does my company need to prepare based on two following use cases? So on the one hand, we have an SME where the project costs exceeds the own fund. There a simplified cash flow forecast is recommended, as well as information / documentation of any financing not stemming from the own funds should be provided. Nevertheless, as discussed before, we recommend that every SME share a simplified cash flow forecast. For a startup, so an applicant company younger than 3 years, the cash flow is mandatory and a detailed cash flow is strongly recommended. Again, documentation of any financing not stemming from the own funds should also be provided. This documentation could, for instance, be included in the cash flow forecast by adding this documentation to an extra tab. And classical examples of such would be investment agreements or loan agreements. So as a reminder, this is the second Q&A question before the deadline of the phase 1, which will be on the 29th of July. We will have a final Q&A session the 26th of July, just covering the completeness check of the application and also answering any questions you still have at that point. And also, as a reminder, on the platform, you will find the frequently asked questions section, which is regularly updated with the questions. If you do not find your answers there, please do not hesitate to contact us under the email contact@researchindustry.lu. So with this, I want to thank you for your attention, and I invite also my colleague back to the stage, Alexander Link, so that we can answer any questions which might have arisen.
Yes, thank you, Eric, for the presentation. Thank you to you all for being there. I think so. We have a lot of time, so we can really take all questions that you have related to the co-funding capacity, but also in general now for the application process, being 2 ways ahead from the deadline. So your questions are welcome. So I see we have a first question of Christine Lurquin from REA. Can a project build on 2 industrial partners and 1 research entity? So thank you for this question. I think this is very important. It's built really on 2 aspects. The first one is that the joint call is addressing national entities. So you can form a consortium with any national research organization or company. If you want to implicate also foreign companies or research organizations, this is possible, but just in the format of a subcontractor, and this should also be located in a NATO country. The second part of it is yes, so you can have 2 industrial partners and 1 research entity. In this case, we would be speaking about probably a collaborative, effective collaboration. So the research organizations could get access to 700K of grant from the National Research Fund, and both the industrial partners could get together 700K for the project that they submit. So I hope this answers the question. We have a second question from Yun Song. In case of the budget change between phase 1 and phase 2, is there any limitation in terms of percentage? Yeah, I think so far, of course, we have the project estimations. I think they should be as close as possible already to what you are planning in for the second phase. As said, also in the evaluation phase of August, we will also be addressing the co-funding capacity. Therefore, try to be as close as possible. Of course, we understand that there might be some changes which could be related to either the industrial research or the experimental development categories that you would address, and which have also different percentages. But yeah, in the end, we will assess based on your co-funding capacity. Therefore, these variations should not be too high. Okay, then we have a question of Patrick Gergen from Respectus. So, what is the starting point in the question? When is the project starting? It is the reason why we decide to initiate the project or the goal of the project? Yeah, I think maybe Eric, you can also answer. I think that the starting point is really related also to the incentive effects, and maybe Eric, you can take this question.
Yes, thank you, Alexander. So the starting point would then once be that the phase 2 has ended and that the project has been retained for funding. This should then take place in February 2023, and hence a project start could then be envisioned for March 2023. And it is important to await the start of the project until then in order to respect the incentive effect which underlie the state aids. So I hope this answers your question.
If it was not complete, you can of course just ask again, and we still have some time. While at the moment there's no new, well, there's already a new question. Thank you, Christine. So when are the projects due to start if accepted in second phase? Eric, you want to take that question too?
So yes, I think this is closely related to the answer previously. So I said the phase 2 and the evaluation of phase 2 should end in February 2023, with then an expected project start early March 2023. So that is when the accepted projects could start.
And also just to complement, so for the duration of the project, it's 36 months, but what both the FNR and the Ministry of Economy always plan within their funding agreements is also that there can be an extension of 6 months, just to make sure that you can make all your demands for reimbursements. Yes, next question from Marco Marquez from Guadel. So yes, it's about the budget caps for each company. I think we showed this in one slide, but it's in fact a bit complex. Therefore, I'm happy to explain it again. So for companies, or the caps that have been decided are per project. So we have the grants from the FNR, which are for the research organizations. They will be capped at 700K for the research organization if they collaborate with a company. And for the companies itself, we have also a cap of 700K, which is also project related. So if you have one company which applies with a project budget of 1.5 million and you would ask for a grant that covers 80% of the eligible costs because you are in effective collaboration with a research organization, then you could get the full grant, full 80%, but it will be capped to the 700K. And the same goes for the case where you would have two companies within one project. So in this case, they would have to split the grant, the 700K, between themselves. I hope this answered the question. I would maybe also take the occasion to point out another question that we've seen also during the last weeks. It's also about the collaboration. So you need to pay attention that whoever you collaborate with, if you want to have the collaboration bonus for companies, or if research organizations want to get the full 700K, you need to make sure that you collaborate with independent entities. So there must not be any connections between the shareholders. So if there's we can have partner or linked companies or entities, we cannot consider them for an effective collaboration. Then we have another question from Christine. So can you explain the maximum percentage that a project can be funded overall? So I think here also it's there's two notions. The grant will for companies always be a maximum of 700K. Then the percentage that will be applicable depends on whether we will be industrial research or experimental development. Here, in the end, if you come up with a project that has a total budget of 500K, and you apply for experimental development as a large company, you would get 25% of these eligible costs, and therefore the maximum grant that you would get would then be 125K from the Ministry of the Economy. So I think it's really important to keep in mind there's a cap for the budget then that you can get to, and there's the percentage that is fixed also in the RDI law, and that will depend on the kind of activities that you do within your project. So either industrial research or experimental development. Eric, if there was anything I missed, you can complete.
No, I think the answer was very complete, and from my side, nothing to add.
Okay, we have another question here, I think from Dejan Petkov from Spark Industries. So will the proposal evaluation results be communicated all at the same time by end of February, or do you consider exceptions for proposals that are easier to evaluate? No, here in fact it's a joint initiative between three ministries in the end, and the FNR as executing agency for the Ministry of Research, and therefore yes, the results will be communicated at the same time. And we have still the phase 2, so we will have the full project preparation phase, which counts for everybody. And I think it's important here also that there will be, to recall that there will be an external evaluation for all these proposals in November this year, followed also by an evaluation by the State Commission at the Ministry of the Economy side for the company's projects. And this will eventually lead to January, February, until we have all the results with the opinions from both sides. And this is also the moment where the evaluation results will be communicated to the participants. Okay, we have another question of Patrick Görgen, again on the starting point, as it is mentioned in the project outline. Yes, okay, I think there might be, in fact, was misunderstanding. So there's the starting date, which is basically what, the day when you want to start with the project. The starting point is rather where do you start with your research activities. We always take as a basis a state of the art that you have internally. What are your competences so far? What is your maturity of your technology so far? And this is basically the starting point for all the developments that will follow in the R&D project. And this, in fact, then you need to go a little bit more into the details of what has already been done so far and where you intend to go with this project. Okay, then we have another question from Yun Song about the curriculum vitae. Yes, it's a good question. I think here in our case, I would propose to take this question and also then to refer directly to Richard Nackert from the National Research Fund, and then we will come back to you right away after this webinar. Well, at the moment, I don't see any other questions. I just take the opportunity to remind that at the moment, so we have already quite some applications on the platform, and it's very important that you also start uploading the annexes. And the annexes are for companies then the annual accounts, the organigrams, having also the SME analysis, and for the startups also the business plan. So don't wait to the last moment to upload those. And so we can also take these examples and questions at the last Q&A session on the 26th. Yeah, we got another question again from Gradel. So has a company a maximum of projects to be founded? No, so in principle, it's really completely open. I think you need, of course, pay attention to your co-funding capacity. How many projects can you eventually engage into? The grant, as said, is per project, and you could, in theory, have 4, 5, or 6 projects. And if you make it to the second phase and get the proper evaluation, then you could even have them funded all. But most importantly is really the co-funding capacity. So really start at what is possible, both on financial and personal resources to go into these projects. And yes, what is also important to know that for the first phase of this call, the ministries or the granting authorities will in the end also assess how much budget is available, and if they see that there's more projects than what they can actually fund, they might have to pre-select projects to go into the second phase. So are there any other questions? Yes. So is my assumption correct that the assessment of the funding rate of a project is based on the individual work programs, which can have different funding rates due to the different work program contents? Yes, absolutely. I think also Eric, you can maybe elaborate more on it, but we'll actually really look at each of the work projects and then try to understand which category it is. Eric, if you want, you can elaborate.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I think Dejan has a correct assumption. So basically, these projects are structured into work packages, where different work packages could touch upon different types of research. As discussed earlier, we differentiate between industrial research and experimental development. And this is mainly so industrial research is funded to a higher rate because it has a lower TRL stage, so there's more technological complexity, there are more risks involved, whereas experimental development usually are then the higher TRLs for the development of a solution. And as Dejan said, different work packages could fall into the different categories and also need to be motivated in such, highlighting the complexity, the maturity of the technology, and so forth. So I hope this answers the question, because at the end, the different work packages will then benefit from the different funding rates, which will make up the entirety of the budget and also the estimated state aid which can be requested.
Okay, so I cannot see any other questions for the moment. So, I mean, we are of course available. We will get back to Yun Song about the question on the curriculum vitae. And then I assume that you all here also because you have started to elaborate and draft the project application. So I invite you all to also take part in the next session that will be organized on the 26th. Start already uploading your annexes that we can have also final analysis on our side and make sure that these are complete. And yeah, with this, I would like to thank Eric for the whole Q&A session and having moderated this. I'd like to thank your participation, and then looking forward to see you all on the 26th and wishing you good luck for the final steps now of phase 1. Thank you very much.
Also, thank you from my side, and thank you, Alex, for the participation and the answering of the questions. Have a great day.
Bye bye.